Today, I present to you my very own masterpiece, a recreation of a Formula One style car. While the Formula One cars today boast million-dollar price tags, flaunt exotic materials, and embody the zenith of technological prowess, let's not allow those barriers to quench our passion for the extraordinary. For us dreamers, limitations are mere challenges that fuel our creativity. Armed with determination and resourcefulness, I've painstakingly crafted a car that echoes the spirit of open-wheel formula cars that grace the tracks. Every curve, every sound, it's all meticulously designed to capture the essence of a formula car and bring that iconic grin to my face. So buckle up and join me on this exhilarating journey as we defy conventional, break boundaries, and prove that passion has no limits. Because when a dream takes shape and it roars to life, there's no doubting the power of determination. Stay tuned as we dive into the details, the challenges, and the triumphs of creating a masterpiece that embodies pure racing passion. Welcome back, boys. The Formula One cart is back. It's exactly how I left it. You know what would really put the cherry on this thing to push the motivation to get it done? Is if we could just start it right now whenever we felt like it, which would involve a battery, doing the wiring, fuel tank, probably a million other little things. But that's where we're gonna start today. It only steers one wheel right now, but
50% of something is better than 100% of nothing.
which means first thing on the chopping block today is this, the original fuel tank. We're going to try and utilize the original fuel pump, and that way we don't have any issues feeding this engine with fuel. Alright, that's an interesting assembly. Couple things to note with this pump. It's going to be extremely hard to get this perfect so it still seals on this side. I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I'm going to do it. The sump is actually in the bottom, so it feeds the fuel pump from the bottom, which is nice, which means we don't have to worry about sloshing the tank as much as I thought, because it doesn't feed from like midway up the pump or whatever. It feeds right from the bottom. Too bad this wasn't a circle shape, because I could just hole saw out the perfect hole. It is indeed oval. Once again, if we could only CNC cut stuff, we would be in the ballpark here. All right, let's see what we can do. I have two options for mounting the fuel tank. One is right behind the seat in this little valley back here, which I would build a firewall between the seat and the engine, which I'm gonna build anyways, regardless if I build the tank there or not. The second option is actually right here beside the diff. In this little area right here, it will be beside the drive shaft, but I put a loop on that drive shaft or build a shield or something around it to protect the fuel cell. I think we're gonna be in the clear. So we'll build it a little bit narrow here, but a bit taller, and that will actually help when the fuel gets low from sloshing and stuff too. The idea is to cut out our bottom plate first and see if we can actually mount the fuel pump in the bottom of the bottom portion before we start building any sides or top of this cell. I just used a hole saw that was slightly smaller than our oval here, and then I just kind of doubled it up at the length that it's supposed to be, and then joined the two lines together, and it kind of gave us a rough shape of our oval. This should be slightly smaller than it needs to be, and then we'll go around with like a deburring tool or like a rotary bit to open up that hole just enough to hopefully seal everything here. Because if you look closely, it has to seal from between here and there, basically. Well, it's not perfect, but it does fit on there, which is all that we really need. Wow, these punches are finally going to come in handy. So essentially the hole right here is going to center the punch. Put that in there. Pretty close. All right, we got Hog Joggers in here. He's gonna start building us a little template mount for our dash right there on the front. And I just bent up these pieces, so our fuel cell is going to be 12 inches by 12 inches by 5 inches. This is actually the bottom, but we're gonna weld that piece first, this piece, that piece, and leave the top open so we can end up bolting our fuel pump down from the inside. We decided right in this area right here, it's gonna end up being right around 3 gallons, which I'm praying your neck is gonna be sore from all like the high G turns before you run out of 3 gallons of fuel, so we're hoping.
Your arms might be sore too.
Your arms probably gonna be sore too.
Your neck. It might take a few laps before we get used to this thing.
Yeah, there's no power steering in it, so. The other way.
We're gonna go the other way?
I think so, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the dash will mount to that piece.
A little cutting it out to make it look prettier, probably?
Yeah. All right, majority of the fuel tank is tack welded up except for the top plate here. This is roughly where it's gonna fit. We have to keep it up off the frame a little tiny bit because the fuel feed hose is actually in the bottom of the tank underneath, so we gotta make sure that that's higher than the floor. Slightly higher than the frame there, which that'll be fine. So before we actually put the top on this thing, we have to weld the whole tank up on the bottom and then put our bolts through the bottom with washers so it doesn't leak. And then we're gonna put nuts on those bolts to hold those tight. Then the pump goes on and then another set of nuts to hold the pump through that. That's my idea. That's what I'm sticking with. If you don't like it, I'm not gonna tell you my address because you'll probably wanna come fight me. Boom, welded. Just gotta wait for it to cool off now, then we can put our pump in there, get the bolt situated, and then put the lid on it, which I don't even know how I'm gonna fill it yet. So maybe we won't put the lid on yet. But there's gotta be a vent and a cap on this of some sort to fill it. And then Hog Jogger's got the dash mount made.
Yeah, need oblongs and holes, but yeah.
That's okay, just make them bigger. Shit. Here's our neat little dash mount here. Hog Jogger's made. We do have to redo this anyways because we have to put that slip portion in it, the extending telescopic piece. But once you're sitting in there, I think that's gonna point pretty much right at your face. Might not be able to see it behind the steering wheel, but at least the dash will be in there. And we have a spot that we can start our wiring now to go back to the engine. All right, here's my idea coming together. Up here we have a nylon washer underneath the head of the bolt here, like this, to seal the bolt in. Then we have a bolt, and we actually had to grind down some of these M6 nuts just to be a little bit shallower. And then the pump is actually going to fit in here, like yay. Bolts are a little bit tight, but then once that sits flat on there, that rubber ring on the inside right here should seal to the surface of the tank, and then the nylon washers should seal the bolts. And we're putting nylon washers on the inside because once the top is welded on in place with the cap and stuff, you're not really going to be able to get at these bolts. So these nuts will never come off, and then the outer nuts will be the ones that you can remove the pump. Is that going to work? Who knows? Only one way to test it. Put some fuel in it. So I don't particularly know if this is gonna work or not. It was on a whim. I just wanted to reuse the stock pump. If I have to remake something, I will. I don't want to, but we have a little bit of C16 here, which is the race fuel I use in my race car. And I'm just gonna put enough in to submerge the bottom. Got some in my mouth, tastes awesome. And it's leaking. Oh. It's leaking horribly, actually. See that dripping? That's not good. That's not good drip. Good drip is like nice clothes. We got bad drip going on. Damn it. What's the solution, Kyle? I don't know. Clearly not all ventures end in climax. I don't know what I'm gonna do for it now. The fact that I welded up a whole tank only to have it leak afterwards was not very fun at all. There might be some like fuel tank sealant or something I could put on there, but I think that would end up ultimately making us permanently mount the pump inside the tank, which I didn't really want to do, but I'm willing to do for the time being. And I believe this is a returnless system, and I don't know what kind of fuel pump the Seabear requires. I don't know if it needs to have a certain pressure or whatever, so Diagnosis time. All right, take 2 from downtown. All I did was tighten the bolts more. Oh, there it comes. One little tiny leak back there. You little jerk face shit kebab. Alright, it got better. Not perfect. I might have to shave down my nuts a little bit more. I have no intentions on welding this before this is like fully cleaned out first. Maybe. This time I'm going to try copper instead of nylon because the nylon one seems to distort a little bit under high pressures. So we're going to try copper to seal the bolt. And we shave down the nuts just a little bit more so the pump itself can clamp a little bit harder down. Take 37, the copper washer era. Gasoline smells good. Oh no, it's still leaking! But barely! You're barely leaking! But I guess a leak is probably not good at all. I swore the copper washers were gonna work. Alright, what I'm going to try next is, do you see this inner groove? It seems to be sitting like a little bit lower than this outer one. I'm just going to trim this outer groove and hopefully give something better to seal on that it can only press here, it can't press out here. So hopefully that will compress that rubber enough to seal on the inside. That's my new plan. I'm going to pull this piece off and do that. This is it. This is for all the marbles. If this doesn't work, I don't have a solution. Might as well fill it all the way with this. Check some welds while we're at it. Now the plus side is this tank doesn't see any pressure. It's going to have a vent open to atmosphere basically anyways. So the leak test doesn't have to have any pressure on it. So far, so good though. Which I am happy with that. We are not leaking anymore, boys. The only downside is we do have to pull a pump out to weld the top piece on, so we do have to assemble it one more time. All right, tank is done. We just need to mount it now. I'm gonna mount it to this diff bar back here because that's gonna be simple. I'm gonna build another crossbar above that, and that'll be what the other mounting point is. Perfect opportunity to use our Rogue Fab notcher. This thing is beastly compared to our old one. Roller bearings inside, so it's nice and smooth. It's not gonna give us any weird angles and weird cuts, and this thing cuts at like 130 degrees, where my old one only cut at like 60 degrees. So this thing's gonna be a boss. Man, that's nice. I'm a little bit high, but that was my own doing, so. Well, here goes in our fuel tank. Just fit right here. Oh yeah, that'd be fine for now. All right, this table is gonna be my home for the next little bit. It's basically the perfect height that if I run my wires up here, send the harness all the way back to here, that it should be able to tuck inside the chassis and still have a little bit left over. Yeah, extending this harness, we need to figure out which safeties we need to bypass on the bike engine. Like I said, this is my station for the next little bit. I'm okay with that. It's gonna take a while. I got a Truly, probably replace that with a Red Bull after. And let's start extending some wires. Yeah, I used all blue wires. So we have everything on this end crimped and ready. This end's gonna be cut to length, and then I'm waiting on tomorrow shows up my small crimps here because I clearly ran out of them. So I'm gonna move on to fuel pump wiring, which is this one, which I can use bigger crimps, I think, with bigger wire. Harness extended. Now we just gotta work on a fuel line to go from the tank up to the rail here. And luckily, -6 line fits right over top of that, so I can just put a clamp on top of that and run a long piece of that line. Don't mind me, just got a little bit distracted. We got this from Engine DIY. It's a supercharged V8. it actually runs on gasoline. And not only does it run, it revs out to 12,500 RPM. So this thing actually rips a little bit harder than that thing rips, because that only revs to like 11,000 something. I was just working on unpackaging it, seeing all the contents of the box and stuff, and getting it ready to fire up. So a lot of these videos just end up being shorts and stuff. If you do want to see it, Johnny QC actually did a video on one of these, but the fact that I own one of these now it's so cool. It's by far one of the coolest things I own. This model, not cheap. This one's right around $2,300 US. However, you can pick up one of these. This is a 2-cylinder version, non-supercharged. And these ones are around 200 bucks. So if you want to have some fun and rip some noises, you can find these things at Engine DIY. And they're super cool just to have around, even if they're just show pieces. They do make a buildable version, so if you want this all disassembled and you want to assemble it yourself, they've got that too. I just keep that one stuffed away back here in a box. That was one of the most terrible experiences I've had all day. All the wires are extended. We'll twist that up, put some sort of wrapping over it. Hopefully it's long enough. Hopefully it works, actually. That's a bigger concern. This is just connected to the battery and ground. Manual override. Oh yeah. Figure out the rest of the wiring now. I think this is what powers it up. This is like the on-off switch, so yeah. So you need to remember this is on-off. Making that on film so I remember myself. All right, we got one of these things. Cheap ignition switch, 4-position switch, really easy to wire in, really easy to obtain. They're basically everywhere. And it comes with a key, so who doesn't want to start the vehicle with a key? Wire this bad boy in. We do have a battery disconnect as well. See how far we get today. It's a new day, maybe you hadn't noticed, because the new shirt, right? So our ignition on this side, tip it forward for key on, start, not wired in yet. And then power disconnect, so when you're in the cockpit here, you can actually disconnect the battery. Just temporarily mounted, don't judge me, but this is fun. Small step, battery's not hooked up or anything like that, I'm just using the booster pack, but, oh, and it died. Oh, it fell off the ground over here. Now we're back. Scared me there for a second. Here's my favorite part now. We already had this running once before, and I had to cross out some wires in order to get the fuel pump to work and whatever on the handlebars to situate. Now that was a while ago, and I was like, man, I'll remember exactly what wires I have to cross out. And now I'm sitting here like a jackass because I don't remember which wire it is, and now I have to look on my laptop and figure out which wires it is again. They are again. Okay, I think I figured something out here. Fuel pump prime, and then I also wired up the ignition, so oh boy. That was cool. That was so cool. For my sanity, I need to do this from the driver's seat. Oh, it's been a long time coming, but we've got power from the driver's seat. However, there is a booster pack hooked up to it, and I need to install a battery still with our cutoff switch, but I figured out the wires that we need. It's not in neutral right now. That's another day's problem, but battery, cross out those 2 wires that I have crossed out, and then it'll start with the switch easy. Now, despite being a small victory, it's things like that that make things pushes the motivation, if you know what I mean. Like, sure, I could complete everything all at once, but the small motivation you get from being able to come out here and just hit the key and fire it up is way greater than it is, I don't know, just trying to like see the final picture. Small victories. Hey, look at that. Battery's in there. I purposely put it at the front. Just in my head, the weight distribution isn't great because the engine's all the way back behind the seat. The frame is a little bit long, but I think putting this 10 pounds or so up above the front wheels might help with the balance of the car. I don't know. I don't have a set of scales. I don't plan on getting a set of scales anytime soon. So we just guessed. Battery's going to go up here. The wing's going to bolt on up further than this. But the battery's in there, it's solid. All I did was weld some threaded rod. I drilled a 1/2 inch hole here, 1/2 inch hole there, put it in, welded the rod in place. Plenty of strong, it's not moving. So we can run our power wires back there. Ground wires are just gonna ground to the chassis somewhere because, you know, the whole thing is metal. It's basically super electro thingamajig to transfer electrons. And one fun fact I didn't know until I did automotive school way back in the day, but the flow of electricity is actually backwards of what you think it is. It actually flows from negative to positive, which didn't know. Don't have any red? Guess we're using black for negative and positive. Just gotta remember, I'll put red little thingamajiggers on the end of them. So the majority of the power you use with this setup is definitely from the starter itself, which it doesn't take that much. So we're gonna get away with a little bit smaller cable than what we're used to, like on an automotive application. So we can use smaller eyelets like this. We've got our big cable crimpers here, and that just goes in here like yay, and that should crimp the end. Now we just got to put a little thingamajigger on there that's red. Make a couple more of those. Just for temporary measures, I'm actually going to run the cable alongside the frame. I usually just tape it in place because I know everything's got to come apart so I can weld the frame anyways. But it's going to run somewhere along here. Now that the cable is on the battery post, what I'll do is I'll take some tape like this and I'll just tape it roughly where I think it's going to go. And really that's what's just going to determine the length that I cut it so it's at the proper length. Like I said, not permanent mounting like this. Dimensions. Oh my god, this tape is so bad. The little middle piece of the tape is missing, so it's floppy. Been there before. And the backside over here, there's a quick little junction right here that I'm going to permanently mount after, but that's where the factory wiring ties into. So our battery cable is going to join up with that, and that's where the bike stuff, so I didn't have to mess with any of the bike stuff. That's where that's going to get its power from. In the case that we ever need to jumpstart this thing and the battery's like not accessible, there is a power lug available right here if you just reach down that you can connect your power wire to if you needed to like jump it or charge it or anything like that. I'm totally an idiot. I totally meant for it to go from the battery up to our kill switch and then back down. And I totally just made that one cable. So now I've got to cut it somewhere in the middle, put it up there, and then build another one to go. Oh, 1 step forward, 9 steps back. Despite the fuel tank leaking very slightly around those bolts that I drilled, nothing is going to be more satisfying than not having a booster pack up to this. Everything's wired in, and I'm going to go start it with this switch. The dash isn't working in though, or whatever. There must be a loose wire in there somewhere. So the kill switch turns it off too, which is nice.
Did that hurt your ears? It hurt my ears.
But it's so satisfying. Steering has to be adjusted some because it definitely can't stay like it is because it's too low underneath this dash right here. So I've got to modify the steering. We've got to fix the fuel tank leak, but despite all of that, at the beginning of this video I said I wanted it to start up under its own power from the cockpit, and that's exactly what it does. I did move the throttle right here, so when you pull on it, it does make noises. We still have to build a full exhaust, we still have to do the suspension, we still got to redo the steering a little bit, but it's headway. I'm enjoying it. I'm honestly enjoying my time out here, and it's just fun. So if you guys have any suggestions on things that I should change or I should look into, make sure to throw it down in the comments. See you guys in the next one. Peace easy. Get that V.